Hello, welcome to I'm Angry and No News podcast. I'm with Mike. Next to me is Matt.
What's up?
Over there's Johnny.
Yo.
Cross table is the other Mike.
Hello.
Yo.
Riots? Is that what we're doing? Riots. So, I don't know when this will be up, but
Next week.
the LA riots just started on, Friday
6th.
officially? Or
Yeah,
Thursday?
whatever the 6th was.
Six.
Oh, the
Friday.
6th. What a bad
Friday.
day.
Friday. Okay, Friday.
June the
is-
6th.
So it's been like, not, half a week, I
Yeah,
guess let's say, a little bit
Just
more.
about.
And or I guess as of the last, 2 days, they've like spread pretty nationwide. And
They're in a lot of places. Yeah.
yeah, like they're all big cities all over the country. My biggest issue with all of it is like, because I understand, like, people have a right to protest for sure. You don't have a right to riot. Like, you can go back and forth about all this. The one thing I cannot wrap my head around, and is just, to me, in and out wrong, is to fly flags of a foreign
Absolutely.
I don't
100%.
I don't get what their point is. I really don't know if you have one of, like, there's like a bunch of pictures that have gone like viral of a guy standing in front of a burning car with a Mexican flag.
Yeah.
I would love if somebody just walked up to him and was like, why are you flying that flag? What's the answer going to be? Oh, because I love Mexico. It's like,
Right.
but you're allowed to love Mexico. Why are you here doing it?
Right.
It's like, well, I love Mexico, and I'm here in this, like, shithole country, America, but it's better here.
But
And
you
it's
can
like,
leave.
So then, why wouldn't you go to the country you love?
Right.
None of it makes sense to me.
That I
None of it
cannot.
makes sense.
I
Probably
don't.
more cultural than national.
It's what?
What does that mean?
What's the cultural? What's better about Mexico culturally?
No, the culture of the people,
Avocado.
not the physical location.
So the idea is this: I'm holding a Mexican
Like saying
flag
that you are
because I
allowed-
love Mexican people.
Essentially saying they are Mexican and allowed to be in America.
Right.
You get how that sounds stupid, though, right?
I mean, look, I really don't care.
No, you have to.
I think that for in terms of optics, if you were trying to make a positive difference, at your point at what they're like originally protesting for, then it's a bad idea. Then you aren't getting that message across effectively at all.
Yeah, but that's not their message, right? They're saying, yes, I am not an American. I am a Mexican, but you should still.
they're
I
saying
still have a
They're
right to
saying
be here.
They are Mexican and American, which is
But they shouldn't
what
be.
feels being pushed against.
How
They shouldn't
how
be.
are
They should be
Mexican
American.
and
Mexican and
Because
They should be
because
American.
If you have family that's Mexican and culturally
No,
you
they
have
should
a
go. They
cultural
should go fuck
connection.
themselves.
I
Like
mean,
those people.
Nice.
They should look. If you're here,
Wait.
Listen, if you're
I have
here,
Italian heritage.
If you're
I have
here
Irish heritage.
protesting,
I'm an
American.
American.
I'm
then I want
American.
to
I
stay
would
in
never
America,
fly.
Then
I would-
fly an American
But people-
flag.
but people
Wear
do
an
it for
American
Italy.
flag T-shirt and
People
say, "I love
definitely
this
do it for
country."
Italy.
But nobody cares on Cinco de Mayo when people put Mexican. Nobody. It's not like Mexican flags are a problem when you're
Yeah.
protesting.
That you want
and
to stay in
not
the
only
country.
protesting but eventually rioting. And I'm talking
Right.
about this is a specific picture where a guy is
Yeah, I've
standing in
seen it.
front of or on
Yeah.
top of
A
a
white
burning
car.
police car. I
Yeah.
think it's a police car
There is.
or just a car.
I
It
think
doesn't
it's
really
a
matter.
car, but yeah.
With that guy,
Mm-hmm.
that is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's people are championing that and saying this is cool. I'm like, no, nobody cares
That's
on
not
Cinco de
cool.
Mayo. The Puerto Rican Day Parade
I have no
was
problem with that.
was last week. Nobody cares.
No one cares.
Nobody cares. People
don't
go.
care.
It's fun. You're totally allowed to not support strong word, but claim or celebrate your heritage in America. Nobody ever says you shouldn't do that for any ethnic. Like nobody's like, no, not that one.
Right.
Sorry, get that flag out of here. Never happens.
Right.
But when you're protesting the deportation, I guess, of what they're considering mostly Mexicans, which I guess it's mostly Mexicans, but I thought,
California, I think was.
I guess, but I thought there's immigrants from all over.
There
I didn't
are.
know. Suddenly it's all Mexican, but whatever.
Well, it's focusing on California specifically.
Yeah, but aren't there? I mean,
There's
there's all
others.
Mexicans there.
Large
Fine,
Mexican
it's LA. I get it,
yeah,
but
yeah,
all
it's
right,
a large
fine,
Mexican
fair enough. Maybe
population,
it's all
so
Mexicans in California. Okay, even then, their argument still would be, you can't deport us because we are Mexican, which is asinine. Wave an American flag and say, I'm
right.
an American.
I'm an American. Don't deport.
I have a culture. I have a Mexican heritage, and I love Mexico. But I
Right.
want to be here, and I want to do good for America.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be. I mean, like.
I feel like that goes
I agree
much.
that it doesn't
I
help.
just don't-
I agree it doesn't help the point. I feel the same way about riding in general. I think that.
Well, of
Right,
course. Well, I'm
it's
saying.
so good.
I'm saying there's a bunch of arguments you
yeah.
can make for that kind of stuff. Like, and I'm obviously not pro rioting in any capacity, but I understand there's like, people can say they weren't rioting until the cops showed up, and then that forced them to riot, which I disagree with, but it's sort of an argument. Or like, what's the other, like, rioting thing? Maybe it's provocateurs, right? Like, there's agents. A lot of people, like, some people say for any time. Oh, no, most of the people truly protesting are protesting. And then there's some hoodlums that want to show up and raise hell because it's fun. And they're the people who light cars on fire. Whatever. I would say to them, well, if you're going to have a protest, you got to police your side as well. If your idea is we're doing a peaceful protest, once somebody starts lighting a car on fire,
You got to stop them.
you got to stop them.
Exactly.
And they seem to not be doing that, so, like, there's an argument there. But I'm just saying, like, even that aside, the flying the flags of a foreign country is insane to me.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's-
And you're right, like, if I was running the protest,
Yeah,
I would be like, get rid of those
I think it's a
immediately.
optical disadvantage for sure, and they're not really displaying to the people what
See, I
they're
think-
Of the
fighting
country
for
they're in,
and
I
very
that they
clearly.
want to be in
I
the country
think
they're in.
it's more rooted in the fact that these people want to come here and not assimilate to be Americans.
They don't want to be American.
They want to bring their culture here.
Yep.
They want to bring whatever they do here. And basically what they're saying is, I just want to be,
They want the perks of America.
they want the perks of America without any of the other responsibilities
Right.
that come along with that. That's the way I see it.
Or even the
because
free
there is
ride.
no other reason to be displaying your flag of your country. You should be saying, look, I want to be here. I want to be an American, and let me prove to you how I want to be an American. There's
In
no
other countries,
excuse.
you would
There's
never
no
get
other
away
excuse.
with flying a flag from your foreign country.
No.
Especially in a protest or riot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it's one thing, like Matt said, but again, I don't think anybody really cares here. Every other time of the year, if somebody has a flag up
Right.
of another country, nobody cares.
No.
I mean, like I said, the Puerto Rican Day Parade was last week. I don't know of any issues of, like,
No.
a bunch of
I'm
people
sh-
going, what are you doing with those Puerto Rican flags?
And I'm sure there were thousands.
Nobody cares at all.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Cinco de Mayo. White people hold up Mexican flags. Like,
Right.
nobody's saying you have to hate Mexico or Mexicans.
And nobody hates
But
them.
when
no-
you're
and that's the
protesting,
thing, no one
when you're
hates
That-
them.
saying,
that's the whole point of America.
when you're
Nobody,
saying- right.
You don't hate people coming in, and they could bring their culture with them in a certain sense.
Right.
Right? Assimilate to being American. Carry on your traditions in the corners that you do, but don't
the
go out
main
there
thing
saying
should be you're
I
an American.
should be here. I should be here, and I should bring my culture here, and I should bring everything else with it. But I don't want to do any. I don't want to be anything that has to do with American.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
You know what I
That's
think?
wrong. That's
I don't know
completely
where it started, but I think it's at the core of a lot of these issues. I think it's so wrong to hyphenate, and I know, like, for statistics, you kind of have to if you're gonna do race statistics. But to hyphenate anything
Like
and
what?
say, like, I'm an Italian American,
Oh, I
I'm,
hate
a,
all
I'm
that.
a
Yeah.
Irish, I'm a
Like-
black
like the
American, I'm a
ethnicity into
or African, not black. I'm an African American. I'm
Right.
a Mexican American. That, I mean, like,
You're not.
like I said, for a census, I guess we do record, like, racial data.
Yeah,
so
but it's
it becomes
it's
like
just
something.
as easy to say I'm American, like you said.
Right? Yeah, you can put it after. Put
roots-
it after.
With roots
But I'm
in
an
Africa.
American. I'm an American African. I'm an American Italian.
Yeah.
well, no,
But
because
ps-
you're like that definitely wouldn't work,
Why?
right?
What?
Because if
I
you
mean,
are
that's
an
like more of a
Italian, you are an
linguistic issue.
Italian. You know
Calling
what I mean?
yourself-
Yeah, it's a
you get my
linguistic thing.
point.
You
I
have to-
just
I get what
mean-
you're saying. I get what
I
you're
just
saying.
mean
but
the
you
main
can't-
thing you
calling
should be
yourself-
is you're an American.
Right.
That's
you
true.
can't-
That should be the main
But calling
thing.
yourself that all along never meant that to anybody, right?
I know. I just mean
Because
it's like
these
it's like a
people came
linguistic
here,
thing.
These people came here with the idea that they wanted a better life, and they were going to do everything they can. I always bring my grandfather up. He didn't speak Italian. He
He
knew
learned the
Italian. He
language,
spoke
right?
Italian. But once he came here, he stopped speaking it.
That,
Right?
That's
He didn't
brilliant.
teach us that. He said, "I'm here in America. I'm going to speak English." He said that.
And that's the way it should be.
Right.
There's
And-
people
and it
that
was
here
like-
30
and-
years
and
that don't
might-
speak
yeah,
the language
and
still.
it might be a little right. Exactly. Right. There's people that are here forever and they don't bother because they stay
No.
in their little
They
pockets.
stay in their clique.
They stay in their little communities that are just an extension of their country.
Right.
Then why come here?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
move to
Right?
a,
Why
I mean,
come here?
they
Forget
move
about-
to a neighborhood
forget
that's
about Mexico and
completely
whatever.
about themselves.
And there's good things in it, but, like, Chinatown is nuts.
Yeah,
Right.
That, like,
It's insane.
kind of shouldn't exist.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And let me tell
I'm
you,
not saying
there
by
was-
fiat you have to go in and,
You know
like,
what,
break
like,
it up,
there-
but, like,
there
it's
was-
kind of nuts that, like, there's
there was
a couple block
battles.
radius
you
that's
could,
it's just Chinese.
Right.
right. And even
Right.
like even at right like Chinatown was Chinatown. Little Italy had Little Italy, and there was little pockets of communities
Mhm.
that were what they were.
And
But
to
I
be fair,
know
this is before.
That that was back.
Before what?
This is before like America. Like I feel like America is having a more like recognizable, influential culture now than like if you're looking at 150 years ago when it really was just like a bunch of people from different places coming. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
Chinatown's
back
been
then,
around.
it
a
made
long
less
time.
sense that you
China,
moved.
years ago.
But
Chinatown's
the
been
point
around
is-
I'm giving
a long time, is my
Chinatown.
point,
I'll give
yeah.
Chinatown leeway because, like, when Chinese people en masse, like we're first moving to America, same with like Irish and Italian. You moved with people, and then you kind of
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
well,
and
the
that's
the
what kind of
the
community.
easiest thing to do
American
was to move in
culture
around people
wasn't-
that you understood
it
and
wasn't really
fine.
like
And there were like
yeah.
sort of mini ghettos for everybody.
you
But I'm
Americanized
saying
it.
for like
Now
it
they
to
don't do
exist
that
today,
anymore.
right?
Now they
That's
don't
what I'm
do that
saying.
anymore.
None of it is.
And there was fights over even in like not Sunnyside, Woodside area.
The
You know,
Irish
they
area?
didn't want them to have Chinese signs up because they put up exclusively Chinese letters.
Yeah.
You can only
right?
read.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one can read except
Right.
the Asians.
And it was supposed to, so they you know, the compromise was, well, you could have 30% of the signage can be, but who enforces that,
No
right?
one.
So then they let it go. So now all the Chinese people go to those neighborhoods, and in Roosevelt Avenue, right?
Right,
There's,
right.
You know, those neighborhoods, and they stay with their own. They speak their own language. They do everything that they need to do in these little pocket communities that
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have, and they don't assimilate. They don't become part of us.
Mhm.
Right.
Right, their money goes back to their country, probably,
Yep.
maybe, I don't know. Some
To their
some
families,
cases they
everything.
do, or
Yeah.
or money even worse yet comes from their countries and buys up half of the shit,
Yeah.
right, and
does.
doesn't make it affordable for
Definitely.
other people, or doesn't make it able for other people to move in, and nobody complains about that.
Yeah. And it bothers
So
me a
we're
lot.
not the melting pot we used to be.
Well, I was gonna say it bothers me a lot that people still. It bothers me a lot that people still talk about the melting pot when they're talking about situations like this. When my take on it is, no, the melting pot was always what a melting pot would be, which is
Everybody.
you take different cultures and then you become
they
a
combine.
cohesive
Yeah.
culture,
Right.
not like a soup of all like it's not oil and water. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like those won't mix.
Right.
Like you can't do that. It's not like, oh no, I'm gonna be in America physically, but I'm gonna just pretty much live like I did from whatever part of the world I'm in. There should be a unified American culture to an extent. I mean, there's always gonna be more. Like if you're from a Chinese family, there'll always be more Chinese influence in your life,
Right.
for sure.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like we're not like particularly like super like Italian, you know,
Right.
from the whatever, none of us speak it, but like we have more of that than I would say I have, you know, Mexican whatever culture. Fine, but like it should all, as a general rule, it should be cohesive.
Agreed.
And it's not only is it not, it's one thing to say like, oh well, that's a hard thing to do. Fine, but it's actually getting actively like fought against that idea.
Yeah.
That no, assimilation is erasure now. And to tell somebody like, okay, you shouldn't, I understand like you speak Spanish and you can still speak Spanish, but you should also learn English.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
now you're being an evil person.
Right,
Which is crazy.
because you give a little, right, and you make Spanish the second language, right, and then people don't need to learn English
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, how
Well,
they
we don't
really
have
messed
a-
up was
we don't
never
have a
making an
first-
official
yeah, I
language,
was gonna
which
say,
is
we
how
don't-
they
we don't
really
have
messed
We
up.
don't have a
Right.
first language.
We don't have they
America
never made an
doesn't have
official
an
language.
official language.
With the whole melting pot idea.
Right, that was the
But
whole,
forever.
I get
Right.
that.
It's supposed to be built by people.
Yeah,
from
but I mean
everywhere.
the
It is what it is,
Constitution
right.
was written
So-
in a language. Can
Exactly.
we not call that like?
That's the first
Can we
language.
Well, I
call a
think-
spade
I
a spade
mean,
and just say like,
To
okay?
be fair, I think for a while it was like you're gonna make English. You know what I mean? Like considering where America came from.
I think
we're gonna make
initially they just
English-
never did it because it was obvious, and then
Yeah.
it became like it's like it was a
You don't want to give that
an
credit to the
unspoken.
English.
No, I think it was
in
just
any way.
no, not even that. I think it was an unspoken like.
It's an unspoken.
Obviously, we're an
It- it
English-speaking
obviously is,
country.
we're an
Like,
English-speaking
we were always
country.
just obviously an
Right.
English-speaking
and
country.
if they're gonna call something a second language in the country, then there
Yeah.
must be a first one,
No, there's
right? And the first one's not.
there's
French.
not
Yeah.
an official.
There
We
I
don't
is
have
know,
an
I
official
know, but I'm
language.
saying
Yeah.
an unwritten rule,
Right,
That says
right.
yes, we've spoken English since the beginning of the country, right? It's
Right,
not
right,
like
right.
we had multiple different languages. That was the language. That was the prevalent language of the country. So
Yeah, and has been
if you're going to
since
declare
its
a
inception.
second language, you have to assume that English is the first language.
Yeah, I
Right?
think they.
So
I
I
think
get
they like
that. I mean,
never
you
named
know.
ones more symbolically
Yeah,
than
I think
anything. That they were like,
symbolic.
we
I
are a
think it's
melting
mainly
pot, so we're not
symbolically,
going to have an
it's just
official
the same,
language, but
yeah.
like it's English. Like
Yeah.
it's
It's
English.
And then
English.
they had to,
And-
they had
but
to
now,
pick up
I
a second
mean-
language just to standardize things because
Yeah.
everything was already written in English.
But now there's whole like we're talking about. There's whole areas of the country you can go and you can't read a sign.
Yep.
Which that is like so now where like what's going on?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like I have a general issue with that, but like I don't know. I guess the assimilation thing
And don't
is
get me started on
Get
people coming
started.
into the country and trying to bring their laws with them,
Like
which
what?
don't really fit what we have here.
You got one?
I feel like that only happens with Sharia,
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, who?
But that's bad
Sharia
enough,
law,
isn't it?
like Islamic law.
That's bad
Yeah.
enough.
No, yeah,
Right? I mean,
for
that's
sure.
like you shouldn't. There is no case to be made that you should bring that here with you.
I agree with that.
Right? If you want to live under that law, then stay in
Go
one
home.
of the Islamic countries that are there.
Yeah,
Not that we don't accept Islam as a religion, right?
you can
Well,
live
But
the
we can't
You could even
follow
live- yeah, I was
those
you
gonna say,
can
you
live
even
as
live it
if
privately,
it's the
yeah.
law of the land, but to then make it the law of the land,
Right.
that's where the issue becomes. Like you can just do all the things, you know what I mean? But like you shouldn't make it a rule that like
Yeah, and I think
the
this is
house over, like I don't know, whatever family, like they also have to wear a hijab. That's not American.
Right.
opening up the borders the way we did was just a terrible, terrible thing, because people came in and just felt that they were going to come in and do whatever they want. They were going to take what they can.
Seems like they are
They were going to live the way they want to live. Yeah, and now
or have been.
people are fighting for us to take them out. Like people don't want us to take them out of the country, and I absolutely do not get this. I'm like, you came in under the like, you knew you came in illegally. You bypassed whatever procedures we had for coming into the country, but now we can't remove you without going through a procedure, right? That's going to take, based on the amount of people that came in, a lifetime, right? And people out in the streets fighting this, like it just doesn't make sense.
I don't know.
It doesn't make sense. Like just you reverse it. You let them in, now take them out.
I just
Take
don't
them out.
understand.
Let them start all over again. We're not saying you can't come back to the country.
I don't know, and Matt, maybe because I know you're the token liberal.
Called you a
No, because
token.
I've never heard a good answer for this, and I really don't know what even. You don't have to answer it as you, but like maybe what you would know.
As a perspective.
What is the process that they are exactly do? Because to me,
It's a trial.
they're not being punished. But what are they
Why?
on trial for? Hey, the evidence you have to provide is your green card, your residency status,
Yeah.
right? A passport. Without those things, what is the like? My point being, right? Let's say you have an illegal immigrant who's like, yeah, I'm undocumented. You got me. I don't own any of the things I'm supposed to have.
Mm.
Now we're gonna go to court and prove what? That you are illegal? Like
Yeah.
what? I
No,
truly.
there's-
What would the court case
Well,
look
you're-
like?
It would look the same way like if you murdered somebody in broad daylight on video.
How so
Why?
though? Because you have
show
to
up,
prove.
You show up to court.
Right, but what would you be
Right.
innocent of in the case of when you kill somebody, you either
Yeah.
killed the person or you didn't.
Right.
If you're an illegal immigrant, right, you either are or you aren't, but you know that already. Not after the court case.
Yeah.
He's
Like
big-
if I got
but he-
brought in,
If you
if
can't
they thought
produce-
I was an illegal
He's saying
immigrant,
that everybody deserves fair process or due process.
I know what he's saying. I'm saying that's
But
the
ridiculous.
isn't that-
what is the
But
what
isn't
is
that
the
a
process
citizen's
due?
respect and rights?
No, technically everybody has.
No,
everybody's covered
yeah,
under the
yeah,
What's the
Constitution.
due
It's on
process,
American
Matt?
principle.
If you're found
So what's that court case
to
look
not
like,
have
honestly?
the right paperwork to be in this country,
Right.
you're here illegally.
Right. You have to
should be
go in
removed.
front of a judge.
Why?
And then
Because
what?
that is how.
You're the defendant. I'm the prosecutor.
Right. I know.
We go up in front
I
of a judge,
understand-
and I
listen.
say, Judge, they don't have any of the things they should have to be in this country. And then you say what?
Listen, if you want to say,
What is the defense?
I'm not a lawyer.
Any of them.
No, that I honestly
What is your
can't give you
defense?
Well,
I'm not
because
a
you couldn't
lawyer.
even think of a
Oh,
possibility.
absolutely.
Because
Because
there
if
is
you
no
get caught,
because there's no alibi. There's no such thing
Right,
as like. Obviously, I didn't murder this person because I wasn't in the state.
absolutely.
It's like, well,
in a
I'm not an
situation-
illegal immigrant because I don't feel like
in
it.
a situation as clear cut as that, right? Because people
Which
fake,
are all of
people
them.
fake documents. To be fair, in a situation, you could present a fake document, and then you go to court and gets proven false. You know what I mean? But regardless, right? In a situation as clear cut as that, I understand what you're saying, where you're saying like this just seems like a huge waste of time because they
No.
aren't
It's not a waste of
arguing
time.
anything.
There is no viable court procedure that could take place. I don't understand what you do. You're again. I'll do
I'm
this
not
again.
a lawyer. That I honestly
Fine,
can't tell you.
but-
I can't
but
tell
Matt,
you
I'm
what
just
they
saying
usually
use-
defend
Right,
under.
Matt,
I
but
don't
like-
know.
but-
I
but,
don't do not know.
Right, but not everybody who talks about this is a lawyer and understands exactly. So I'm trying to ask you,
Mhm.
with a logical brain, what is it
He doesn't
to
have that.
you, right, that I am the prosecutor? You're an illegal immigrant, or Johnny's an illegal immigrant, and
Why
you're his
me?
lawyer, just
Yeah.
'cause. And he gets arrested. He's whatever, walking down the street, driving his car, whatever it is. He gets arrested. They say, "Hey, where's your, are you a citizen? No, I don't have a license. Do you have a passport? No, I don't have a passport. Do you have, anything? Do you have
Right.
a green card? Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have a visa? Your work visa? No. How'd you get here? I walked across the southern border. Okay, this is your court date. We're gonna show up next week. We go to court. I'm the prosecutor. I go, this man has none of the things he needs to be here. He said it himself that he walked across the border. You're the defense. What do you say?
I'm telling you, I don't know.
Right. But my point is that you couldn't even possibly think of a single defense because it's not. And again, they're not even being punished.
But
They're
back
not. There's no punishment. I understand due process if the result is you go to jail. All that's happening is you get sent back home. That's a punishment. That we need due process to send you back to your house.
on principle, I think so. Yeah.
Why?
Why?
What principle?
Because
What
because
principle
I
is it
think
on?
that there's
You're not being
I
punished. You're
think
not
that-
being jailed.
I think that there is a big, like everybody recently says you can never get away with this in other countries, and other countries would never do it this way, whatever, and it really overlooks a lot of what is special about America, and that's one of the things. If you are here and you are found at committing a crime or whatever, you are suspected of committing a crime, there is a process that you follow, no matter how
Okay.
indefensible it seems.
So Matt,
So you are saying it is just a total waste of time, but we
It's
should do
right.
it.
I'm saying it in a
because we're
clear-cut
America
situation
and
like that.
that's-
I understand you
Okay.
can
So
say
Matt,
it's a
our
waste of time,
country-
but
So truly, we're a
definitely-
joke. Our
So
justice
Matt,
It's
system
not
is
a
just
it's
a.
not a joke. That is a.
We have no right
it's an
to enforce
honorable-
our laws.
They're enforcing it, but there's a process beforehand, and that's an honorable thing.
our
to say-
country,
I think that's
our
ridiculous.
country has sets
Then
of laws.
change
Our
it.
country has sets of laws, right?
Yeah.
Right, that we follow, and part of that is what you're saying. Like we provide
We have
due
a
process
process.
to people,
Correct.
right? Why did we allow 10 million people to walk across the border
I don't know.
unchecked?
That's
Right?
That's a political mess. I have
But why?
no interest
Why?
in. I
Like,
wasn't.
'cause-
I
'cause
wasn't any
there's-
of the
There's
administrations
laws
that
that
did it.
say people should not be able to walk in.
I wasn't any of
right?
the administrations that did it. I have absolutely
Yeah,
no
but then
idea
why
what
does it
happened.
not work in reverse? They walked in.
It doesn't work in
knowingly.
reverse because this is
We walk
America,
'em
and
out.
that kind of
But
thing
why
doesn't
did we let them
happen
in?
here. I don't know.
That's
why.
not supposed to happen either, but it did.
Okay, but that just
So why
because,
not
just
reverse the
because
situation?
just because some
Walk 'em out.
administration at some point overlooked something and and allowed for that to happen, absolutely doesn't mean that we're just supposed to be like, well, forget our whole ideology about how we process crime in America. Forget about all
But
that. Let's
why
undo
was
it.
nobody fighting
I-
to stop the people from coming
Why
in?
weren't you fighting to stop the? What do you want from me? I have absolutely no idea why
I'm
people
just
weren't
asking
fighting
the question.
it. I don't.
Like, why
I don't
does it
know.
not work in reverse?
I don't,
If
it doesn't
you're
work
here
in reverse
illegally,
because it's not like you can just
your
say.
due process is very simple. If you don't have the papers, that's your due process. You don't have the
you
papers to be here.
appear
You
in
have
front
to
of a
get out.
judge, and the judge.
There's no reason to
decide-
appear in front of a judge.
That's how the law works. That's how it was formed. That's
But
how
aren't-
the,
but
that's
isn't-
what the country was formed on. If you want to change
Yeah,
it,
it was
fine.
also formed on you
They
can't
can
just walk
go
into
ahead.
the country.
They could go ahead and
so
change
why
it the
is it
same
so
way.
bad
Listen,
to send them out?
the same way they have changed border policies, they can change the due process if that really comes up. But they're not going to do that because it's an American principle. And they're not just going to abandon that because of something that people are saying is a large issue. They're not just going to abandon it completely because of so-called hypocrisy
There-
about
but
allowing
there's
the crime to be
no-
committed and then forcing due
But
process.
there's no
They're not
due
going to
No,
do
no,
that.
because the truth
Your
is that
due
none of
process
it.
is
Nobody.
produce the
Not a
paperwork or get
single.
out.
Not a single person right now who's claiming. Oh no, the only issue is due process. I think they are criminals, but they all
I
should
can
have
agree
their
with you
day
on
in
that.
court. They're all totally bullshit.
I can agree with you. on
They're
that.
all
I can agree with you
bullshitting.
on that,
They're
that-
all liars.
That there are
None of them ever cared about due process under anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, forget about like. I think it's a bad example because I think they generally should have been in jail. But like the January 6 people, there's multiple. 26 of them, I believe, were held for at least 2 years without. Talk about. Oh my God, he's gonna get rid of habeas corpus, which is literally your right to a speedy trial.
Right.
And they were held without trial for
And
2
nobody
years.
cared.
Nobody
Nobody
cared.
cared.
Not only did nobody care, they were angry that they were let out, and I guarantee if you polled them, all like generally 90, 99, 95, whatever percent of people on the left would say they should still be in there. They were seditionists. They were insurrectionists. Without trial, where's the due process? And they're gonna go, well, no, we just know that they did it because they were there on January 6th.
Right.
And I would say, well, we just know when somebody's an illegal immigrant because they have no paper. They have
Exactly.
no proof
Exactly.
that they should be here, which is very simple.
I
Easy
think,
to get.
I think
Very, very easy.
especially if you're talking about politicians saying that specifically, I agree with you.
No, people too.
No, there are people saying it, but
No, any
getting into
person I've ever
people-
spoken to.
getting into people is difficult. But I think if you're talking about politicians, especially, then yeah, absolutely, these people didn't care beforehand.
No, people too.
They're
People
using
people are worse than the
they're using
politicians.
it as a
Because
as
at
a
least the
grounds for an
politicians
argument.
did know and they chose to ignore it. The people talking about it act like it dropped out of the sky that Trump. Oh, sorry. Suddenly, Trump is the only person who's ever gone against due process. When every other president in their lifetimes, all these adult, like grown people talking about this, I'm like, so were you just like willfully uninformed under Obama, or did you not care,
Right.
or what? Because you're acting like this is the thing, this is the line.
Exactly.
Due process. Every single person deported needs to have due process, and then we go, or I'll go, well, under Obama, the ACLU actually said that up to 70 to like 80% of deportations weren't given due process. And then they're like, well, that doesn't, he was nice about it, though. But he was like a nice guy.
Yeah.
I thought due process, am I misunderstanding something? I mean, you're not saying that they're dragging people through the coals and sliding them back to Mexico. You're saying, no, you can deport whoever you want, but you have to give them due process rights. And they're like, well, Obama didn't. And it's like, well, not him. That was cool. He's a nice guy. Cool.
To be fair,
Good president.
I've heard a fair amount of criticism on Obama for that.
Come on, give me a break, dude.
It's
Anything
not
close?
close to
Were
the
they
level.
protesting?
No,
It's
Comes
not close
down
to
to
Were they
the
were
level
they
that
rioting in
If
L.A.?
you-
Give me a
if
break.
you
It
wanna
comes
make-
down
Give me a
to-
break,
If
dude.
you
Oh, the
comes-
deporter in
if
chief.
you
He had one
wanna
article
make-
written about
If
him.
you want to
Grow up.
make comparisons, I have never said that.
I'm not saying you. I'm
that
using
people
you as
go
a
easy
figurehead
on
for
Donald
the.
Trump. If you want to if you want to give me the opposite side of every single thing, fine. But we'll be here all day. Yes.
No, I'm
Yes,
saying I'm saying a
everyone-
very particular thing.
Everyone, politicians and the media especially, have since 2015 been harder on Donald Trump than anyone. I will always say that he gets a lot more.
Right. I
shade
guess I just wish they would admit
publicly.
it. I wish they would
Yeah,
all
but-
tuck their tail
but
between
come
their
on.
legs and say, "Oh, Trump scares me.
But
He's
come
a
on,
big mean
people
guy, and
people aren't
anything he
gonna do
does
that.
scares
they
me."
feel
But
like
they should,
They
because
feel like
Oh,
they need.
man.
They
But they're lying
feel
all
like-
the time. They're just lying all the
They feel
time.
like they need. They feel like they need a legitimate basis for argument, and even if you want to call it the hypocrisy in it,
It
it's a
certainly
legitimate
is.
point.
It's not a legitimate point.
it-
It's not.
To say due
You
process is a
cannot come
legitimate
to me.
point.
You can't come
It's
to
not
me
a
and say
legitimate
point.
it's not a
It's
legitimate
It's
point.
the law. You can't say
No,
it's
but
not a
these people
legitimate
cannot
point.
come to me and say
say-
Donald Trump is not obeying due process. And then I go, well, he didn't, and you didn't care, and they say we're not talking about that.
Right.
Right.
How is that not a legitimate
Right.
point for me? Then I'm like,
It's
it
not
seems
a
to
legitimate
me.
point for you because you are now redirecting it from what's going on now to something that they didn't, although sometimes did, criticize in
So
the
it's
past.
always forget about the past.
Right.
That's it.
If your
Not-
side did
Okay.
it one way,
It's
Yeah.
not
then you can
always-
forget about
is-
it and you can move
It is
on.
an
Well,
right?
It
well,
is an
let's
unproductive.
just
I'm not
move
saying they're
past
in the
it,
right,
right?
here, by the way. I'm not saying that they're correct in doing that. I understand the hypocrisy is wrong and it should be called out. But if you wanted to sit down and actually have a discussion of be like, okay, why do you care about this? Is it the due process? Like, do you think, like, explain that to me? And your first thing is like, well, what about this thing that happened 8 years ago?
Yeah,
And you
because
weren't-
my point
and-
is
and
that
I'm-
they're all lying.
Sure.
They're scared of Trump. They don't like him.
And I understand,
whatever it is,
I
and they're
understand your
lying about
point,
the
but
thing.
you cannot sit here and tell me that is productive to that conversation.
I certainly
what you
can.
are trying to get out of them is, yes, I'm lying and I don't like Donald Trump, and
And they'll
what you
never
want
say
them
that.
right? And they're never going to say that, and that's not even what the
So then why do
conversation
I
is
have to
about.
involve this? Why do I even have to act like this due process conversation matter?
Exactly.
Like what
It
they're
doesn't matter.
saying means anything to me.
It
I'm
doesn't. It
supposed
means
to
nothing.
I'm supposed to go, no, it's
You're
not.
supposed
it's not.
to defend
no,
why
I'm saying
believe
you don't
that
care.
Due process shouldn't be respected.
And I just explained it because it's
Right,
not. It
and
has
if you
nothing
wanna
to do
sit
with
and-
due
and
process.
have that-
That's my argument about due process. But
I
somebody
don't-
coming to me and saying he's an
I
authoritarian because he doesn't believe in due process, and I say none of the last 3 presidents. Forget about fine. Obama, it was years ago. Biden just happened, a year ago,
Sure.
and people were held habeas corpus. Forget about it. Due
Yeah.
process. Forget about it.
Yep.
And they're like, well, no, that was a long time ago. I'm like, that just happened.
That just happened.
You were talking about Trump
Because it's,
during that.
right. It's
That
always
whoever.
forget about what
So
the last
fine,
guy
fine,
did
my bad. I
if
should have
it
said it
wasn't
then.
my guy, right?
And people were
Exactly.
saying it. And people were saying it. And they're like, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
The media's not saying anything about it, whatever. And then all these clowns on social media are like, oh no, due process. Like, I don't even, it's not about Trump. It's just that this could
It's
never
about
happen in America.
You don't hear a lot about
Grow up.
You
So
don't hear a lot
grow
about
up.
Abrego anymore, do you?
Do you disagree?
They dropped the
with
Abrego
people being
argument.
given due process, or
Oh,
you
yeah.
just disagree with people weaponizing that?
I
against
disagree.
Donald
I disagree with
I
both
disagree.
things. I'm
Okay,
just saying it's
okay.
ridiculous to
I
me that they
disagree
use
with
it
the
as a tool.
illegals
Because,
that
like I
came
said,
in.
I think it.
People came here illegally. They are not entitled to due process. Their due process is, are you here illegally or not?
Okay.
Period. Amen. Get them out. That's their due process.
Okay.
They have no other right than that.
Uh,
No other right than that.
Are you saying that on principle or like as if that's how it? Because that's not. I mean that is that is factually incorrect. You can want that. That's fine. You can
Due
have your
process
opinion.
for
I don't
those
care.
people should be
If you,
suspended.
if you think that
Period,
it should
amen.
be,
It was
that,
too many
you know,
coming in, too many got
do
over
I
the border
disagree with you?
because of incompetence or whatever the case may be, right? That it should be suspended and these people should be released. If they don't have their papers, send them back.
You can have.
You know what I would
yeah,
accept?
When they
I
get
think
back
you could-
home, Matt, if they have a case, they can make that case from
I
there.
think you can.
Which you should always do
absolutely-
from your home country.
I think
That's
you
right.
can absolutely have that opinion. I disagree. Frankly, I find it un-American. If you do, I understand the
so
logic
you also
behind
find
it.
un-American
I
them
un-
letting
That's
all the
good,
people into
because
the
they're
country.
un-American.
Yes?
So it works out.
Letting
I
the
don't
people
find it
into the country
necessarily.
was not
I don't.
un-American?
I don't find it necessarily un-American because
Even though they're breaking laws.
because I mean, because first of all, I think letting is a very generous word, but even if I'm going to
How
go
is
with
that a
that,
generous
even
word?
if I'm going to go with that anyway,
Why is it a generous
I don't
word?
think that there was necessarily a time where we didn't have people coming into the country en masse. And so, can I say that it's un-American in nature when America wasn't necessarily founded on closed borders? No, I can't. I understand your point. To be fair,
we
I'm
have
saying you
laws,
have this opinion
Matt.
because
We
I
have
understand.
laws about people coming into the country.
But people have, since
There are-
America's
there are
inception,
rules to
broken
follow.
those laws, though.
Doesn't make it right.
So that makes it okay.
No, but I'm saying that
It's the
is
one
not,
law you're allowed to break.
It's not. No, I'm saying that when I
Apparently.
say it's un-American,
defended for.
I mean when America was conceptualized, that was one of the things that if you were in this country, there is a certain process, things that happen whether you belong to us or not, right?
I feel like at the time, though, I understand.
Yeah,
like
maybe they weren't seeing the
constitutionalists.
future, but
But look,
that's
that's
what
not
they
even my
did.
due process. That's a separate one, and I kind of disagree. I don't think it's like this group of people just doesn't deserve it. My question is, and fine, you're saying, well, they just have to show up. A judge just has to be there. Fine, put a judge with a stamp, and they just walk him in. They say no
That's it.
documents, no
That's what I
documents,
was
no
thinking.
documents. Fine,
could-
do that.
yeah.
Fine. But
Could
I'll accept
could
that.
they make it more
But
efficient?
this is
if
my
they wanted to?
secondary problem, which I mentioned before,
Mm.
with the due process thing. The reason why due process, I believe, and I mean, I understand you're just saying, well, it says this, fine. The way due process works in every other system or case, right, is you're found guilty, and then you are punished. Some amount of punitive thing is given to you, right? Or maybe it's totally you're guilty, but then they just go, oh, fine, but time served, right? So there was some idea that there's a punitive
Yeah,
measure,
I understand. Where
right?
you're going. I get.
Unless and this is the one time I'll accept, and I'll take back my due process thing, and I'll say they should all have a court case. Every single person who is for due process should have to admit, and when I'm saying to me, I say like if I'm talking to them, they have to go, well, they're fleeing shithole countries that suck and they're worse than America. That's why we can't send it back, and that's why it's punitive. Because they can't say that. They have Mexican flags up. And I'm like, how is it punitive to send you to a country you love? That's a punishment I gotta go through due process for? I thought you loved Guatemala. I thought El Salvador's beautiful. You're having margaritas with a criminal, but that's punishment to send them home. Fine. Then you have to kowtow. Every politician should be on every Democrat politician should be on there and saying, look, we were wrong. When Trump called them shithole countries, he was totally right. They all suck. America's the best. And that's why sending these people to their home countries is actually wrong. That's why we need due process. Because we have to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that that's where they should be, or else we're dooming this person to a terrible life. But they got to admit that to me. And they never will.
I
They'll
won't-
never say that.
I
That's a
won't
joke.
doubt
So then they
you-
can,
They're
like,
making
I
a
won't doubt
mockery of
you.
our
Fine.
country.
I won't doubt you on the discourse of it, but I will say that I truly have not heard someone say that people are coming here illegally, but aren't coming to America because they believe it leads a better life to them for them.
those people. But I mean, nobody who's arguing about that would
Right.
ever say the whole argument about
Yeah,
the
yeah,
anti-Trump thing
I
is that
understand.
America is
Right.
is terrifying, and then
Right.
they're rounding them up and throwing them in jail and sending them to prisons across the
Right,
They
world.
all
right.
want to be here anyway.
I understand.
So fine, accept that your country is terrible. Say it, and then you have a case to say, well, no, I should be here because I snuck in, but really it's hard back home, so I need due process to prove. I have to prove that I should be here, which is also impossible. Again, going back to like, I don't understand what process they even do when all it is a simple fact finding. It's like if every murder just came down to, did you murder them?
Yes.
Yes, I murdered them. If that was the case, I don't really. I mean, would due
Well,
process
you
be necessary? I guess.
That
need
is
it.
that can happen in immigration court, to be fair, because the civil assent's not a criminal one. You could just ask them.
Well,
Did you
right,
come
but
here
like you can
legally?
also
They could say
admit
yes.
to a murder, and then I don't think they take you through the whole court
'Cause-
proceedings.
No,
right?
they do.
They
Yeah,
do.
no, you
No,
are.
you have one.
always-
You have sentencing.
No, you
No,
are.
you
take a
always-
plea.
You
No, even if you plead
have
guilty,
to
you have
go
to,
court
because
in
your
front of
state
12
of mind,
people.
No, you
your
don't.
state
Yes,
of
you
mind might
do.
not be.
I'm pretty sure you guys are wrong
No,
about
you
that.
do.
Can.
There's a sentencing, which is a
you-
court procedure.
No,
No, you can, and keep in mind it's not the same thing because murder is a criminal offense. So you get a jury of 12 people. You can waive it. Technically, you can
Right.
waive your right to a trial. Nobody ever really does. You
If you
can.
plead
But you,
guilty,
but
what's
you,
the
but you
trial?
can, but you can.
If
There
you
is
plead
no
guilty,
trial
what's
if you
the
plead
trial?
guilty.
They want to hear the facts of your case and
No, they
No,
don't.
they can't.
No, they
adjudicate
don't.
You as innocent
they
if you
go
pleaded
on your
guilty.
yeah they
No,
to
they
decide
don't.
your
Cannot.
sentencing.
No,
I said
Sentencing,
sentencing,
yes.
which
Right.
for
But you
if you're an
also-
illegal immigrant, there's only one sentence: deportation.
But you
So why, like, what? You got to come in and say, yeah,
technically
send him out.
fines, But you
Yeah,
could,
send him out.
you
Yeah, send him out.
could, yeah, but still, they still have the choice to plead guilty or not guilty, and they
Right.
and
Look,
they
I
go to
understand that
court.
you're just saying like we have to bog
We
down
have
the
to
court
do it,
system.
of course.
Right. Okay, fine, but like you get how that seems like to normal people.
I
let's
understand
say,
from a logical
that, like
perspective.
there's
I
an
understand
argument
where
that
where you're coming
it's
from.
not like you're evil and you're trying to kill all these people.
No,
I know you're not saying this,
No,
but
I know.
speaking for your party, it's crazy to me. I just don't. I'll never understand it. I just won't. It's just like so.
I like
stupid
your
to me.
idea of having one judge just
Get
boom,
him with a stamp.
boom,
Is it-
boom.
okay, fine. If you want to speed it up, I don't know what has to be said.
Do a few
know
hundred
what I
a
mean?
day.
Like, I mean, for how many of the cases are really that the person's like, oh, no, I technically, I am an illegal, but I got this protective order, but I can't find the thing, and what, like that, Brego, that's
well,
it?
I
It's a-
assume
it's a
I
joke.
assume knowing
It's a
that
joke.
Which was a
pleading
joke
guilty
anyway.
automatically gets you
Mockery,
deported, which
making a
honestly it
mockery
doesn't.
of
I think
our
sometimes they
country.
just find them, but
They should be, though.
I
I mean,
think
that's fine.
that-
That's a separate thing.
I think that most people try and come up with a case of some sort. There are immigration lawyers who like just do this. You know what I mean? Like I think
Yeah,
that
and
people
all
do
of their
it.
cases are just some sob story
Yeah, I mean,
about
it
like their
really-
poor life back home, which
Maybe,
is like,
but-
I don't.
But
You
let's
could-
be
not my
honest,
problem.
But let's be honest,
if-
from a lawyer's perspective, their goal is not to get to the bottom of the truth. They're just trying to win the case.
Then if you
So like
say
yeah,
right,
lawyers
but
are
I
gonna drum
don't-
up that kind of thing because that's
Right.
what lawyers do.
Right,
They're-
Matt.
of
But then I do have an issue wasting time and resources on people who are not American citizens.
yeah,
Exactly.
I think
Fine, you want to call it due process, call it due process. If we're gonna really get to that level, though, and like I don't know, the Mexico president Scheinbaum, whatever, she just said she supports the protesters.
Yeah.
I think that's to me sounds like a declaration of war. I mean, you got people burning stuff, flying Mexican flags,
Mhm.
and then the president saying I support,
support
them.
them.
That sounds like a declaration of war. Now, so I have to accept that illegal citizens have a right to our system also, just generally. They just have a right to bog down our system. And these lawyers get to go, well, we're going to appeal this. We're going to appeal this. So now an illegal citizen just gets 3 years here, even going through due process.
Yeah.
I have an issue with that. I understand that
I
you're
think
saying,
that's fair.
look, that's just how that's
Yeah,
just the
I-
law.
like I said,
fine. But
if
like
you
that
want to
is
believe that,
patently
that's
absurd.
fine.
If
and-
you're screaming
and
due process now,
there-
and you didn't scream over the
not
last 4
fair.
years that people are coming in illegally and it should be stopped, then you have no right to scream due process.
I disagree.
president
should
I
be in
absolutely
charge.
disagree.
Because they're
I
just-
think
You can
that-
disagree
I think
all you
that
want,
is an
Matt.
They're just
insane-
anti-Trump.
want.
They're just
It's just
anti-Trump, and they
anti-Trump.
try to hide it
Disagree
behind some
all you want,
pseudo-intellectual
Matt.
babble.
You should have been
agree.
That's
jumping
all it
up
is.
and down
I absolutely
that these
listen,
people were coming in here breaking our
Nah,
laws,
that-
and our
come
government
on,
was
that's-
allowing it to happen. Period.
Look,
Amen.
Look,
Done.
I think
Think whatever you want.
I
You're
think
wrong.
you are absolutely correct in the way that like I said, especially for politicians, this is just a somewhat defensible argument to weaponize against Donald
Yeah.
Trump. I will
So
say that
you're just saying they
point blank.
picked a good one.
I think it's a good argument.
Right, you're saying they
and I
picked a
think
pretty
that, and I
sound
think
argument.
that to then just go to the opposite side and be like, well, if you didn't say you were upset about this injustice, then you must not be upset about this injustice. Because to me, the border situation is not as fundamental of a American principle as due process is, and due process is worth fighting for over border regulation, because due process is to me a foundational part of America's inception and its current law.
But our sovereignty is not, and our borders are not.
I mean, Matt, to be funny too, or not funny, but like they changed the law, right, that you can turn people away at the border. But like, wouldn't your thing technically mean the second they get 1 foot onto American soil,
They should be arrested
and given a full due
and
process?
given a trial.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't think that's crazy?
No,
Like, I mean,
again,
look, I know it's not
understand-
your. I'm just
I
saying, like, so
understand-
1 foot. How like,
look,
you're getting
look.
tackled by a border patrol agent. You get your hand
Let me
across,
say
and they
this.
gotta go.
Let me-
He's gonna be here for
let me
6
say-
years now, going through appeal school.
Let me say this: if anybody, well, I mean, obviously, like laws written, understanding that never happens. But regardless, I think if anybody's gonna sit here and tell you that it makes absolutely no sense that you think that, no sense logically. I'm not talking about from like principle.
Legal, yeah.
Not even legally, but principally.
Fair.
If somebody's gonna come to you saying logically, I have absolutely no idea why you think that somebody who is not living here legally doesn't have the right to a trial.
Mhm.
I think that they are they're reaching, and they probably don't even understand the argument that they're trying to make.
Mhm.
Right? It's totally different to say what I'm saying. I completely understand your point. I disagree with it because it goes against, to me, and I mean, there's basis for this, what it means to be American and what America stands for or should be standing more for, based off of its history and the structures that we have set up currently. You can say, I think we should change those, and to me that's fine. Look, you could think you can change anything about the country, right? That's the whole point. Is it's supposed to be breathing, and then it can change over time. And if you want to say that it deserves to change, I disagree. I think it's a good system. I think that it really sets us apart. I think people want us to match the nationalism of certain other countries way too much nowadays. I think they're forgetting what makes America unique and what makes it special, what made it revolutionary at the time, and what makes it revolutionary to this day. They want to erase all of that and just make us another powerful country and not the United States of America. To me, that is fundamentally un-American. But that doesn't mean that I
just
don't
like
get where you're coming from.
I get where you're going at, but like I just don't think for a second when you're saying like foundationally American, like if we're really going back to like the founding fathers, I have a feeling that they were not for total illegal immigration.
I don't think
Maybe, maybe not.
I
But
just doubt for.
But I
us-
think
like,
that they're. I
just
think
don't.
that they
I mean,
were
they had
smarter.
slaves.
I think they were
Like, I don't
smarter
think- you know
than
what I mean?
people nowadays really want to give them credit for in terms of planning for the future. They didn't think of everything. They weren't. Not all of them were geniuses.
I
A
don't know
couple
if
of
they
them were.
ever saw.
Not all of them were geniuses.
Saw like
But I
millions
think
of people
that's what
coming across the
but
border.
No.
They probably assumed that any reasonable government, to my dad's point, any reasonable government would always prevent illegal immigration by and large, so that you could spend, if you only had 5,000 illegal immigrants, yeah, you happen to
Right.
find one somehow in the needle in
But-
a haystack, you can give them due process. But when there's millions upon millions,
They can't.
really, like you're saying, and I know again you are saying
No,
this,
I
but like
understand.
I'm just you being the token, is like, okay, so we just do have millions. So now the argument from the left is, that's unfortunate, don't really know how it happened, just kind of slipped up, but like now you do have to spend the next 50 years trying to get them out.
Right.
So, which is saying they just have a right to be here,
Exactly.
which everybody just disagrees with. So it's like, all right, so no, we don't have we sort of don't have a country in that. If we accept that line of thinking, it's like, yeah, you just got to get over here and then stay and then whatever. You know what I mean? And then like, yeah, well,
70% of the country wants them out.
it's only going to grow with these riots.
It's a major reason why Trump got elected, right? And if the politicians listen to the constituents, they should be getting out. And whatever rule change they need to make, they need to make. That's the bottom line. I know they're not going to do it because they're fighting Trump.
Yeah.
They're fighting Trump.
Well,
It's
also
all
extremely
about fighting
difficult.
Trump. That's all. Anything he wants to
Anyway,
do.
That is all
The
it
point
is.
I was trying to make wasn't that maybe they predicted this, maybe they didn't. When I say that they were smart in future proofing, it has to do with the open-endedness and the limitation, as much as they can, of their intention and perspective in setting up the structures. My point being is that I don't think that they were, they were like, oh, maybe one day, there's going to be this number of millions of people
Mhm.
crossing borders. I think that they're saying like this fundamentally without any pressure tests is how a country should be. Now, your guys' argument obviously is, hey, that's not how reality works. You
Yeah.
can't be 100% on. It's a nice sentiment, but you can't be 100% on principle all of the time.
Yeah, I mean the Second Amendment exists. The left does
Well, they
not
don't
want that.
They want to limit it, not get rid of it. To be fair, But
I want to limit due
I wanna
process.
limit-
I want to limit due process to citizens. Like, it's
Yeah,
the same
it's a joke.
exact argument. I
Right.
mean,
It's
who's
freaking-
the hate speech people?
right,
It wasn't the right. You know what I mean? So, like, fine, I do get your point. But, like, to act like the left is, like, suddenly they're like, no, guys, what makes America America is the Constitution.
Right.
And these inalienable rights is such ridiculous, lowbrow bullshit that it hurts me to hear. Spewed from these, like, legitimate. I mean, they just, whether it's a politician, somebody on, like, CNN, or somebody on social media. I'm like,
But
you guys
I
are all
think-
making this up because you don't like Trump.
But-
Admit it.
So-
For the people who are the peons who are on social media, just admit that you just take talking points.
Right.
Just say it. Say, like, look, this is what I'm told to do, and I do it. Okay, fine. I can accept that. Then talk
But-
about it. I'm not going to listen to you anyway. And now I have, at least you can admit that what you're saying is
but
ridiculous.
I think though I understand that you will defend it, right? Obviously, you did argue against it. I think how much this specific conversation, especially because I've literally tried to steer it away from there as much as possible, has gone to that the hypocrisy, everybody's lying. I think like the emotional aspect of it, that like it makes me so angry because I know that they don't
people
care,
make me
and I
angry.
know that they're lying, right?
Yeah.
I think
Not
that,
the Mexicans.
I think that
I'm not mad at
no,
illegal
no. I'm saying the people who are making the argument. I think that Republicans in power feel the same way. They don't like Democrats in power, and and this is on both sides. But I'm going to criticize Republicans specifically here because this is
Mhm.
the change that you guys want to see. They are feeling that, and they want to call out the hypocrisy at every turn, and they want to get this emotional one up to just be like, you don't really care, and you're just lying. And I think that is absolutely why they're not gonna put that. They're not gonna make that change. They're not gonna to reconsider the constitutional definitions of due process and what it means for people who are here legally. They're not gonna do that because it's a pissing contest. They just want to see who's lying more often. And they don't.
Nah, well, I disagree with that only because if they really tried to change the law, if they said, you know what,
They'd get stopped.
you guys are right, we've been the protests, you guys are right, we've been doing it sort of like quasi legally. So what we did do is amended the Constitution so that due process only counts
Applies
for.
to
You're telling me
citizens.
they're not. All the liberals are gonna suddenly, or
no,
Democrats
I'm
are
not
suddenly gonna
saying
go. "Ah, they did it the right way.
no,
Take
no,
them,
Right.
take them away. No, they're
No,
gonna
I-
lie about
of-
something else. They're
of
gonna make up
course,
another thing,
of
right?
course, but it
so
gets
my point is just
done.
it's not a real.
It's an argument. Of course, politics
thing
will
is fake.
always be an argument, but
Fair
it
enough,
doesn't
but
matter.
like
but
it is a
gets,
fake
but
thing.
it gets done.
The bottom
Is
line
my
is
point.
But
A-
but
a
you get my
set-
point that
a
it's never
whole-
actually. It's not due process.
a
It's
set
just
of
I don't like Trump. This is a
circumstances were
thing going on.
Absolutely, but I
a
think
set
that
of
the focus
circumstances
on
were
that.
created that are beyond what we can handle via due process. So something needs to be changed,
Yes.
right? Whether you invoke some old laws, some old rules, things that go into effect when there's a war going on, whatever that is, should be done.
I'd be fine with them changing the law.
You know,
Like I wouldn't
because
care.
nobody's saying that these people cannot come back into the country. Nobody's
Legally.
saying we're not compassionate, that we don't feel bad for the people that are here. But you took a chance. You came here. We can't handle it. We're on overload in this country. We're on overload with these people. And now we're going to have 4 years of protests because the Democrats cannot accept that they lost the election. So there's going to be 4 years of protests across the country
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe even another pandemic in the 4th year. Who knows?
Yes.
Because it's freaking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I say both sides don't get along. I get that, Matt. But the Republicans go along with the Democrats way more than the Democrats go along with the Republicans. The Democrats can make a decision to say, you know what? Let's go to Trump and let's start making some kind of deals that make sense for the American people. But they won't. They got to stand on their laurels. They got to continue to say Trump's a Nazi. We called him a Nazi.
Well,
we
I
said he's
think
the worst person in
yeah.
the world.
Dog.
And now we can't go back and say we're going to work with him.
And now they're tying the due process to that, which only furthers my point about like, fine, if you want to, like what you're saying, like, well, you can't really talk about old presidents. It's sort of a different thing. They're just talking about the issue here. Fine, but if you're using his lack of due process to say he's a Nazi, well, then I think it's very fair to say, well, then Obama's a Nazi.
Yeah,
And you have to admit that, or else I cannot believe you're
I don't-
arguing even in
I
good
don't
faith.
necessarily think I understand some points that people make, but I don't think that this whole narrative about fascism coming from Donald Trump is extremely productive for anybody.
It's not about it being productive. It's about it being either true or not. He either is or he isn't.
Yeah,
Nazis-
but
Nazis-
there's
or
but
he's
the-
either getting
but the
closer to it or
legitimate-
further
Yeah, but the
away.
legitimate
Nazis,
political
way,
Nazis don't even seem so bad anymore.
the only the
Well, just
only
'cause they call
legitimate
everybody that.
way
Everybody's a
the only
Nazi.
legitimate way to know that is if America falls into fascism, right? Because if it doesn't, you'll never know how close
Well,
it actually
these
got.
people are saying it has.
No,
they are wrong.
They're saying it's
They're wrong.
approaching,
But nobody will tell
They're
them
saying
that.
it's approaching, and my point is that
Mm,
saying
I
that
think
it's
these people, the
approaching-
people protesting and rioting, I
They-
have a
they
feeling.
forget that Donald Trump
I have
was
a feeling
was
if you asked a
president
lot
for
of
4
them-
years and the country didn't fall to
I
pieces.
think that
Yeah, right. He
saying-
didn't take over
I
Right,
think-
as a
exactly.
fascistic ruler.
I think that saying that America is barreling towards fascism is an improductive conversation.
You think that is an
I
unproductive
think it
conversation?
is. Yeah, I think it's not. I think it all it does is alienate people, especially people who them being alienated would actually matter from ever working with Donald Trump. I think there are Democrats scared to touch Donald Trump with a 10-foot pole because they truly believe. I don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people are just saying it for show, but I think that there are Democrats who truly believe this, and it will stop them from ever allowing any sort of agreement to be met. The criticism I have always given Donald Trump, though I understand his, I always say that he gets slammed a lot. I understand his idea behind this. I think that it's a poor decision as a politician, is that he feeds into it because he treats them the same way instead of, turning the other cheek or whatever, right? I'm not saying he has to. I think it's a good move politically if, that's what he decides to do. So I think he enjoys being fought by Democrats. I think that he takes a lot of pride when he gets a win over something that Democrats were pushing for. And so, we can argue chicken the egg all day. I think that they both just do not want to work with each other, because whatever reason happened over the years. But I think specifically
Over
right
the
now
years,
it's
the
this
day he
fascism
came
thing.
down the elevator, they basically said he was a devil, and they haven't stopped since. They haven't stopped since. If
But
anybody's
honestly,
going to make it work, they have to eat a little crow at this point and say, you know what?
honestly,
maybe
no,
we went a
absolutely.
little
Or
over.
I mean,
I don't
hey,
think
work
that,
with
listen,
RFK.
Listen,
Like,
I don't
exactly,
think
help
right?
some.
I don't
work with some.
I will say this at the point that we're at now, though. I think from the beginning, Donald Trump should like I said, dealt with it differently. I will say at this point, I don't blame him at all for not wanting to extend the olive branch. These people, what I'll say is that, because I realize this a lot, I think left-leaning views get grouped together a lot by conservatives, so you don't see like the little pockets of things. A lot of people 4 years ago, a lot of left-leaning people, even like people who were kind of I don't want to say falling into, that's kind of mean, but pushing towards like democratic socialism, like Bernie Sanders supporters, would see these articles, like these sensationalist articles saying Donald Trump's a devil or he's second coming of Hitler or whatever, and thought it was ridiculous. That happened a lot. I know because I'm
I
saying
don't
you
see that.
because you group it all together. I know, but
Oh,
trust
I group
me.
it all together. I mean,
But-
I will accept that the mainstream, I don't believe that the mainstream liberal media is the win. Like, they're the crazy ones. And actually, if you go to some random Twitter group, they're all like, Trump's not that bad. Are there people who are more center left, who are like, yeah, MSNBC can be crazy. I really don't think Trump's evil. Sure, but if CNN, MSNBC, whatever, yada yada, if they're all saying that Trump is a fascist, I believe I believe it's totally fair to call that the party line.
No.
I mean, AOC, it's not
this time around.
They were doing
that's
it
what I'm
last
saying.
time, dude.
No.
They
Last
were.
time they were doing it, but people weren't listening to it. This is what I'm trying to explain, that you don't understand when you're not. And this probably happens on the other side with conservatives too. I'm not saying I understand every pocket of conservative, but you don't see this when you're just looking at everything. You're just watching the news and looking at, that's your line is the news. The news were saying this 4 years, during the first election and during his presidency, but people weren't really buying into it. Towards the end, when he got on Twitter and started saying about the election, how it was going to be rigged and bring up all this, people started to buy into it more because it seemed so ridiculous to them that the election would be frauded at such a large scale. And then January
Until now.
and then
Trump won, and now he
know,
stole it.
Exactly.
And then J6 happened, and that
Another joke.
definitely isolated tons of people. Or you see American citizens attempting to break into their own capital. You see, Mike Pence saying that Donald Trump was putting pressure on him not to certify the vote. Like, that definitely gives people more of an idea that, like, hey, remember I read that article 4 years ago and they were saying this is what Donald Trump wanted to do? Maybe they had a point. So this time around, during this election cycle and now his presidency, there are a lot more people believing it, and that's kind of my point. Donald Trump at this point cannot extend an olive branch because there are Democrats and even Democratic politicians who just don't trust them because they actually think that this is the truth. And so you know what I mean?
Because people continue to tell the story.
Yeah.
People
Definitely, but
continue
I'm saying, like,
to say not to trust them, right? Instead of coming out and saying, again, it goes back to the media and even like the Democratic politicians, saying, look, this guy was president for 4 years. He did a lot of things wrong. That's fair, but he did not ruin the country. Right? He might not have done things the way you liked it.
He didn't round up and kill all the gays or something. Like everything they were saying he was going to do.
They were talking about, he didn't do. So someone has to come out and start to say it, because if they don't, it's just going to continue this for 4 years. That's the point. So whether or not they believed it in the first 4 years or not, like, we're continuing to hear these same things.
Well,
you
that's
go
my point.
Look up stories on the internet,
I think
and everything
people
is
believe
against
it
him.
now. I think
everything
people,
is against him.
That's my point, is that compared to 4 years ago, where maybe they could have had some
But
sort
they
of
believe
working
it, but
relationship.
there's no really, like, there's
I
nothing
think-
to back up what they're saying.
Like, yeah, they're just saying
Like, he's
a
not.
thing.
He might not be doing things the way you like, but he's not doing things wrong.
Right.
Right?
Or he's
I
not
mean-
a fascist.
I mean,
Fa-
the
well,
thing
yeah.
is, if people, like, presidents go, they do things, and if no one challenges them on it, they get to do it. You know, Trump tries to do things, and he gets challenged.
On
and,
every little
and because
thing.
of that, they're
Whatever.
told he's a devil. He's a devil. He's going to take down democracy.
The
Like,
orange
none of
man.
that stuff's going to happen. None of that stuff's going to happen.
I agree with.
None of that, so then people should start
and
saying
that I've
that.
said from the beginning.
Like,
but
they can't
no, but
keep preaching that this guy, everything he does is wrong.
do I think that they should? No, I think they will, because like I said, I think that we're at a point now where it's not just it's not just people trying to sell stories anymore. It's
Rocking
like,
the boat.
it's
tired.
It's like legitimate. I think people really believe it, so they're not gonna do it not just because they're just like I'm gonna give up the narrative now. It's just
Now,
like
people believe
guy.
it, but that doesn't mean that if you come out and start to say, well, here are the real facts. Here's what the guy did and what he didn't do, that they couldn't unbelieve it, right? They couldn't change their minds. Many people have changed their minds.
I don't know, because
I mean, a lot of people changed their minds in
They're
the
gonna
last
hate
election.
the funny thing.
That's how he won.
The
They'll
funny
hate him
thing
about
about
Well, there was also the 20 million votes that
Come-
20 million people that didn't come out and vote in the last election.
the funny thing.
Now.
There was
knows?
also
Who
them.
knows?
There was also them.
The funny
Yeah.
thing about, I think, pushing a narrative of fascism is that you kind of
Go get 'em.
are able to explain things away with manipulation.
Why'd you tell him that?
Both ways.
Why would you
right?
tell him that?
If he's barking at something else, it could be a werewolf.
He's barking.
A werewolf. Okay. Comes down the
We
Democrats,
should wrap up
Republicans.
anyway.
We
We're
got
in like an hour.
We're about an hour.
The dogs are
Hey,
let
hey,
out.
hey,
What
hey,
did you
hey.
rile this guy
Pretty
up?
long one.
Now we gotta cut this whole last couple
Yeah.
minutes.
Now we gotta get rid of it all.
And the plane.
And the plane. Look at that. What a waste. All right.
Anyway, thanks for listening. I know we went a little over.
Well, cut this
Pick
one into two.
up. We'll
Yeah,
pick this
Maybe.
one up
Cut it
next
like
time.
flat in half.
Could have gotten to 5. You know.
Call it part one
Cut
and
it
part
to
two. Just cut it right in half.
Thanks for listening, and as always.
Stay angry, ignore the music.